Her name echoes through time, Helen of Troy, a whisper of beauty, a legend forged in fire and blood. Her story, a tapestry of love, war, and fate, continues to captivate us. We are drawn to her like moths to a flame. Helen's tale is not just an ancient story, it's a mirror reflecting our own desires and regrets. She is both victim and temptress, a pawn in the games of gods and men. Was she truly responsible for the devastation that followed? The Trojan War, a conflict that reshaped the ancient world, revolved around her. A decade of battles, countless lives lost, all for the sake of one woman's beauty. But was it truly just her beauty that ignited the conflict? The story of Helen transcends time and culture. Her name is synonymous with beauty but also with tragedy. She is a symbol of desire, the object of affection that sparked a war that still resonates in our collective memory. From Homer's epic poems to Hollywood blockbusters, Helen's story has been told and retold. Each generation adds its own interpretation, its own understanding of love, loss, and the fickle hand of fate. Was she a willing participant in her own abduction? Or was she a victim of circumstance swept away by forces beyond her control? These questions have haunted historians and artists for centuries. The phrase itself speaks volumes. The face that launched 1,000 ships. It conjures images of a beauty so powerful, so captivating, that it could move nations to war. But Helen was more than just a beautiful face. She was a daughter, a wife, a queen. Her story is a reminder that behind every legend, there is a human being with hopes, dreams, and regrets. In the chapters that follow, we will delve into the myth and the reality of Helen of Troy. We will explore her origins, her loves, and the choices that led to her fateful encounter with Paris. Join us as we journey back in time to uncover the truth behind the legend. Helen's story begins not in the realm of mortals but in the celestial sphere of the gods. Her birth, shrouded in myth and divine intervention, was a portent of the extraordinary destiny that awaited her. Legend tells us that Zeus, the king of the gods, was captivated by the beauty of Leda, the queen of Sparta. Consumed by desire, he transformed himself into a magnificent swan, his white feathers shimmering with unearthly radiance. Leda, drawn to the creature's beauty, found herself embraced by the god in disguise. From this union, under the starlit sky, Helen was conceived. Her very existence was a testament to the intoxicating power of desire and the capricious whims of fate. Even as a child, Helen possessed an ethereal beauty that set her apart. Her hair shone like spun gold, her eyes sparkled like sapphires, and her skin was as white as alabaster. Her laughter was said to be more enchanting than the siren's song. As she blossomed into womanhood, her beauty became legendary, surpassing even the most captivating nymphs and goddesses. Princes and kings from far and wide journeyed to Sparta, captivated by tales of her exquisite features and unmatched grace. Helen's beauty was not merely physical. It was said to emanate from within, a radiant aura that illuminated all who beheld her. But this extraordinary gift, bestowed upon her by the gods, would prove to be a double-edged sword. Helen's beauty, while a source of admiration and awe, also became a burden, a curse that cast a long shadow over her life. Her suitors, blinded by their desire, became consumed by jealousy and possessiveness. Each man believed that he alone was worthy of her hand, sparking rivalries and conflicts that threatened to tear the kingdoms of Greece apart. Helen, caught in the center of this maelstrom, found herself torn between duty and desire, a pawn in a game of power she did not choose. Her father, King Tyndareus, feared that choosing one suitor over another would lead to a catastrophic war. He sought a solution, a way to appease the vying princes and secure his daughter's future without unleashing bloodshed upon his kingdom. Tyndareus, guided by both wisdom and desperation, devised a plan. He gathered all of Helen's suitors, a formidable assembly of powerful men, and demanded an oath of unparalleled consequence. Each man before the gods and his fellow suitors was forced to swear a solemn vow. He would recognize Helen's chosen husband, whoever he may be, and defend their union with his life. Should anyone dare to abduct Helen or challenge her marriage, the other suitors would unite against him in a war of retribution. This oath, known as the Oath of Tyndareus, was meant to ensure Helen's safety and deter any man from attempting to claim her by force. But in a cruel twist of fate, the very oath meant to protect her would become the catalyst for the Trojan War. With the oath sworn, Tyndareus cautiously allowed Helen to choose her husband. She selected Menelaus, the king of Sparta. The marriage, intended to usher in an era of peace and stability, proved to be a temporary reprieve from the storm that was brewing. Unbeknownst to Helen and the courts of Greece, the gods were orchestrating their own designs. A golden apple, inscribed with the words "to the fairest," would set in motion a chain of events that would plunge the world into chaos. And on the distant shores of Troy, a young prince named Paris would soon make a fateful choice, one that would forever alter the course of history and seal Helen's destiny as the face that launched 1,000 ships. High atop Mount Olympus, the gods gathered for a lavish wedding feast. The air crackled with divine energy, a symphony of laughter and music echoing through the celestial halls, but amidst the revelry, a seed of discord was sown. Eris, the goddess of discord, uninvited and unwelcome, arrived with a gift. In her hand she held a golden apple, its surface gleaming with an unnatural light. This was no ordinary fruit, it was an embodiment of chaos, crafted to ignite jealousy and strife. With a sly smile, Eris tossed the apple into the crowd of unsuspecting guests. The music faltered, conversation ceased, all eyes turned to the apple, its inscription, "To the fairest," shimmering like a beacon of temptation. Three goddesses, each believing herself to be the rightful recipient, reached for the apple. Hera, the queen of the gods, majestic and proud. Athena, the goddess of wisdom and warfare, her eyes flashing with strategic brilliance. And Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty, her allure as potent as a whispered promise. Hera, her voice booming with authority, claimed the apple as her due. As the wife of Zeus and the protector of marriage, she believed her position was unassailable. Athena, her gaze sharp and unwavering, argued that her wisdom and strategic prowess made her the fairest. She offered victory in war and unparalleled knowledge. Aphrodite, her laughter like the tinkling of wind chimes, approached the dispute with a more seductive tactic. She whispered of love, of passion, of possessing the heart of the most beautiful woman in the world. Each goddess, convinced of her own worthiness, refused to yield. The dispute threatened to escalate into a divine brawl, a conflict that could shatter the very foundations of Olympus. Zeus, eager to avoid such a catastrophe and wash his hands of the delicate matter, declared that a mortal would decide the apple's fate. And so, the task fell upon Paris, a young prince of Troy. He was known for his fairness, his love of beauty, and his shepherd's wisdom, far removed from the intrigues of the gods. Yet he found himself thrust onto the world's grandest stage, tasked with judging the unjudgeable. The three goddesses descended upon Paris as he tended his flock on the slopes of Mount Ida. Each, desperate for the apple and its affirmation of their superiority, appeared to him in their full glory. Hera, radiating power and majesty, promised Paris vast kingdoms and dominion over all men if he chose her. Athena, her gaze piercing and intelligent, offered him victory in all battles and unmatched wisdom. Their offers were tempting, appeals to ambition and the desire for power. But Aphrodite, her voice a caress, took a different approach. She looked deep into Paris's heart, sensing his desires. She whispered of Helen, the wife of Menelaus, a woman whose beauty eclipsed even the goddesses themselves. Aphrodite swore to deliver Helen into Paris's arms if he would only grant her the golden apple. Paris, torn between the allure of power and the intoxication of love, found himself captivated by Aphrodite's promise. The image of Helen, a vision of unattainable beauty, filled his mind, eclipsing all thoughts of kingdoms and conquests. With a heart pounding in his chest, Paris reached out and placed the golden apple in Aphrodite's outstretched hand. The die was cast. His choice, driven by love and desire, would have consequences that reverberated through the ages, shaping the destinies of both gods and mortals. Hera and Athena, their pride wounded and their fury ignited, swore vengeance upon Paris and his city. Aphrodite, triumphant, smiled knowingly. She had won the prize, but her victory would come at a terrible cost. Paris, unaware of the storm he had unleashed, returned to Troy, the image of Helen forever etched in his heart. He had chosen love, but his choice would ignite a conflict that would consume nations, topple empires, and forever etch his name in the annals of history as the man who sparked the Trojan War. Word of Aphrodite's promise echoed in Paris's ears as he embarked on a journey across the wine-dark sea. He sailed towards Sparta, a city renowned for its wealth, its warriors, and its queen, the breathtakingly beautiful Helen. Excitement warred with trepidation in Paris's heart. He, a prince of Troy, was sailing towards a king's city, not as a conqueror but as a supplicant to a promise whispered by a goddess. He carried with him treasures from his father's kingdom, gifts fit for a queen, hoping they would be enough to sway the heart of the woman who haunted his dreams. The journey was fraught with peril. Storms rose, threatening to shatter the ship against the jagged teeth of the Aegean. But Paris, driven by the fates and Aphrodite's unwavering hand, persevered. His desire for Helen, fueled by the goddess's promise, burned brighter than any storm. Paris, accompanied by Trojan nobles, arrived at the court of Menelaus, the king of Sparta. They were received with courtesy and warmth, for hospitality was sacred. Menelaus welcomed Paris as an honored guest. Gold glittered, musicians played, and the air was thick with roasted meats and sweet wine. Paris's gaze was drawn to Helen, who presided over the feast with ethereal grace. Days turned into nights, each stolen glance, each whispered conversation, fanning the flames of a forbidden love between Paris and Helen. He spoke of Troy, of its majestic walls and the fragrant gardens that overlooked the Hellespont. She, in turn, shared tales of Sparta, of its fierce warriors and the ancient rituals that bound them to their gods. Aphrodite, a silent orchestrator in the shadows, wove her magic. She planted desires in their hearts, magnified their shared longing, and blurred the lines between duty and passion. The world outside the walls of the Spartan palace ceased to exist. All that mattered was the intoxicating allure of a love that defied both gods and men. Their love was a dangerous game, a dance on the edge of a knife. They were both bound by oaths, by duty, by the expectations of their birthright. Yet they were powerless to resist the pull of their shared destiny, a destiny woven by the fates and set in motion by the capricious whims of the gods. As the moon cast long shadows across the sleeping city, Paris and Helen made a fateful decision. They would flee Sparta, abandoning their responsibilities and embracing a love that promised both ecstasy and ruin. Under the cover of darkness, they slipped away from the guarded palace, their hearts pounding in unison with each stolen footstep. Paris led Helen towards the harbor, where a ship, its sails billowing in the night breeze, awaited them. Guilt warred with desire in Helen's heart as she looked back at the receding lights of Sparta. She was leaving behind her husband, her home, her entire world, for a love that promised both liberation and damnation. Yet, as Paris took her hand and led her aboard the ship, she knew there was no turning back. News of Helen's abduction spread through the halls of the Spartan palace like wildfire. Menelaus, his pride wounded, his honor stained, was consumed by rage. He remembered the oath sworn by Helen's suitors, an oath that bound them to defend her marriage, no matter the cost. Messengers were dispatched to every corner of Greece, carrying with them the king's summons. The oath, once a safeguard, was now a call to arms, a catalyst that would set in motion a conflict of unimaginable scale and ferocity. 1,000 ships, each bearing the banners of 100 different kingdoms, would soon set sail for Troy. A generation of heroes would rise and fall in the shadow of a war fought for love, honor, and the insatiable thirst for vengeance. And at the heart of it all stood Helen, the face that launched 1,000 ships, forever bound to the destiny she did not choose but could not escape. The Greek fleet, 1,000 ships strong, descended upon the shores of Troy like a wave of iron and fury. The air crackled with war horns, swords clashing and warriors roaring. Leading the charge was Agamemnon, king of Mycenae. Beside him stood his brother, Menelaus, determined to reclaim his stolen wife. From atop the walls of Troy stood Hector, prepared to defend his city. The first clash was a maelstrom of bronze and blood. The initial assault on Troy was fierce, but the city's defenses held strong. Generations of Trojans had fortified their home, its walls built to withstand any siege. The Greeks, unable to breach the city's defenses, settled into a protracted siege, their ships forming a blockade along the coast. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and still Troy refused to yield. The Greeks, camped outside the city walls, grew restless. Their supplies dwindled, their morale waned, and the constant threat of Trojan counterattacks kept them on edge. Inside the city, the Trojans faced their own hardships. Food became scarce, the constant fear of attack wore on their spirits, and the weight of defending their home against a seemingly endless enemy took its toll. Yet both sides fought on, their destinies intertwined in a conflict that seemed to have no end in sight. The siege of Troy had become a battle of wills, a test of endurance that would push both Greeks and Trojans to the brink of despair. The Trojan War was not merely a conflict between men, it was a battleground where gods and mortals clashed. The Olympian gods, divided in their loyalties, took sides, shaping the course of the war. Aphrodite favored Paris, ensuring her champion's victory. Hera and Athena sided with the Greeks, tipping the scales of battle. Legendary heroes rose to prominence, their names etched in myth and history. The clash between Achilles and Hector became the stuff of legends. Achilles, the Greeks' greatest warrior, was a force of nature unleashed upon the battlefield. His speed was unmatched, his strength legendary, and his rage, once ignited, burned with the fury of 1,000 suns. Yet Achilles was also a man of pride, his heart easily wounded. When Agamemnon, in a display of arrogance, slighted him, Achilles withdrew from the battle, his wrath threatening to unravel the entire Greek campaign. Without Achilles, the Greeks faltered. The Trojans, emboldened by the absence of their most feared adversary, pushed their attack, driving the Greeks back towards their ships. The tide of the war seemed to be turning in favor of Troy. Section 5. A decade of bloodshed. The Trojan War raged on, a relentless cycle of sieges, skirmishes, and bloody battles. 10 long years the conflict dragged on, claiming the lives of countless warriors, both Greek and Trojan. The plains outside Troy became a graveyard, littered with the bodies of heroes and the shattered remnants of dreams. The gods, watching from their celestial perch, wept at the senseless bloodshed, their interventions only prolonging the inevitable tragedy. Helen, trapped within the walls of Troy, became a silent spectator to the carnage her beauty had wrought. She was a prisoner of war, a trophy, and a symbol. Yet both sides held her responsible for the endless cycle of violence that had engulfed their world. As the 10th year of the war dawned, both Greeks and Trojans were weary. The desire for victory had morphed into a desperate longing for an end to the bloodshed, a way to escape the seemingly inescapable cycle of violence that had consumed their lives. Section 1. A Whisper of Hope. The 10th year of the Trojan War cast a long shadow over the battle-scarred plains. Both sides, weary from the endless cycle of bloodshed, clung to a fragile hope for peace. The Greeks, their ranks depleted, their spirits worn thin, yearned for a return to their homeland. The Trojans, their cities scarred but unbroken, longed for the day when the invaders would finally abandon their siege. But the gods, it seemed, had other plans. The cycle of violence once set in motion was not easily broken, yet amidst the despair, a whisper of hope emerged from an unlikely source. Odysseus, the cunning king of Ithaca, known for his strategic brilliance and his ability to outwit even the gods themselves, devised a plan. Section 2. The Cunning Odysseus. Odysseus, observing the stalemate, realized that brute force alone would not bring down the walls of Troy. The city's defenses, strengthened by time and Trojan resolve, had withstood every Greek assault. A new strategy, one that played on Trojan trust and their yearning for peace was needed. He proposed a plan both audacious and deceptive. The Greeks would build a colossal wooden horse, an offering to the goddess Athena, a symbol of their surrender, and a plea for safe passage home. In secret, however, a select group of Greek warriors would conceal themselves within the horse's hollow belly. The plan was met with skepticism. Could the Trojans, hardened by years of war, be so easily fooled? But Odysseus, his voice filled with conviction, argued that desperation could blind even the most wary of enemies. The Greeks, desperate for an end to the conflict, placed their faith in Odysseus's cunning. Under the cover of darkness, the Greeks enacted Odysseus's plan. They feigned retreat, their ships disappearing beyond the horizon, leaving behind the colossal wooden horse, a silent sentinel on the battle-scarred plains. The Trojans, emerging cautiously from their city walls, surveyed the scene with a mixture of suspicion and disbelief. Had the Greeks finally abandoned their siege? Was this horse, this seemingly harmless offering, a genuine gesture of peace or a cunning trap? Arguments raged within the walls of Troy, some urging caution, others seduced by the promise of victory and an end to the decade-long conflict. Section 4. The Sacking of Troy. As the moon climbed high in the night sky, casting long shadows across the silent city, the Greeks made their move. Under the cover of darkness, Odysseus and his chosen warriors, their hearts pounding with anticipation and dread, slipped out from the belly of the Trojan horse. The city gates, opened in celebration, became a gateway for destruction. With silent efficiency, the Greek warriors overwhelmed the unsuspecting Trojan guards, their blades reaping a bloody harvest. The signal fire, ignited on the city walls, announced to the returning Greek fleet that the hour of Troy's downfall had arrived. The Greeks, their battle cries echoing through the night, surged into the city, their fury unleashed upon the sleeping populace. The streets of Troy, once bustling with life, ran red with the blood of its defenders. The screams of the dying mingled with the roar of flames as the Greeks, their thirst for vengeance unquenchable, put the city to the torch. Section 5. Through the Ashes. The sacking of Troy was brutal and merciless. The city, once a beacon of civilization, was reduced to smoldering ruins. Helen, her beauty a catalyst for destruction, witnessed the city's fall. Through the smoke and ashes, Helen emerged, a solitary figure amidst the ruins. Section 1. A legacy, etched in time. The ashes of Troy have long since settled, buried beneath the sands of time. Yet, the legend of Helen, the woman whose face launched 1,000 ships, continues to captivate and haunt us. Her story, a tapestry woven from threads of myth, history, and human drama, transcends the boundaries of time and culture. Was she a victim of fate, a pawn in the games of gods and men, or was she a woman of agency, whose choices, however ill-fated, ignited the flames of war? The answer, much like Helen herself, remains an enigma, lost to the mists of time. The poets and playwrights of antiquity grappled with these questions, their interpretations shaping our understanding of Helen's character and motivations. Was she a willing captive, escaping an unhappy marriage in the arms of a handsome prince? Or was she a stolen queen, yearning for her homeland, her heart heavy with the knowledge that her beauty had unleashed such unimaginable suffering? Section 2. The Enduring Allure of Helen. Helen's story serves as a cautionary tale, a reminder of the devastating power of beauty, desire, and the fickle hand of fate. It highlights the fragility of peace, the ease with which oaths are broken, and the enduring human capacity for both love and violence. Her legacy, however, extends beyond the battlefield. She has become an archetype, a symbol of feminine beauty, both revered and reviled. Her name evokes images of grace, allure, and the intoxicating power of desire. Yet it also serves as a warning, a reminder that beauty, like fire, can be both dazzling and destructive. In the end, Helen of Troy remains an enigma, a figure shrouded in myth and mystery. Her story, passed down through generations, continues to spark our imaginations, forcing us to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves and the world we inhabit. For within the heart of Helen's tale lies a reflection of our own capacity for love, loss, and the choices that shape our destiny.